city's strange, melancholic beauty, a place where Italy, Slovenia, and the old Austro-Hungarian Empire blurred at the edges. But Nelson's greatest voyage had not been across the Atlantic. It had been the journey that led him to Rose Amati Oike.
We go to Baltimore.
Rose's parents had migrated from Enugu to the United States in the late 1970s, establishing a life in New England where Rose was born.
Here, I am just Stephanie. Sometimes I think the walls here remember too much. My dad says that...
The Bora makes me feel it. Come in, Dad.
Ah, the Venezia Grand, most likely.
Eat. We start packing tomorrow.
Sometimes, but it is not like being pulled apart. And when I am here, I am just Stephanie. Sometimes I think the walls here remember too much. My dad says that...
Was born. Yet, despite holding a blue American passport from birth, Rose's soul remained fiercely tied to Nigeria. She wore her heritage not as a distant memory, but as a living, breathing reality. When she married Nelson in a vibrant traditional ceremony in Enugu, followed by a formal wedding in Maryland, she became Rose Mads Kent. But she made one thing explicitly clear. Her children would know the soil their ancestors walked upon. When Nelson's career finally brought the family to settle permanently in Trieste, Stephanie was born into a household where three worlds collided daily at the dinner table. Steph! His mother's voice drifted from the kitchen, rich and melodic, carrying the unmistakable cadence of an Igbo woman who had spent her youth in America and her adulthood in Italy. Vieni a mangiare. The food is getting cold and your father is already telling his old sea stories to the walls. Stephanie smiled, stepping inside the high-ceiling dining room. The mansion was a testament to their blended lives. On one wall hung a massive, framed nautical map of the Mediterranean, used by his father during his final years as a ship captain. On the adjacent wall hung a vibrant canvas of Uli art, its intricate black patterns dancing across a background of ochre and crimson, brought back from their last trip to Nigeria.
Sometimes I think the walls here remember...
You're brooding on the balcony again, son, Nelson Kent said, looking up from his plate. Nelson was a tall, broad-shouldered man with silver hair mapping his temples, his face lined with the deep creases of someone who had spent decades squinting into the ocean sun. A boy your age should be down at the Barcola with his friends, eating gelato or arguing about football. I was just watching the cargo ship come in, Dad, Stephanie said, pulling out a chair. It looked like one of the old Mediterranean Shipping Company liners. Ah, the Venezia Grand, most likely. Nelson nodded with an expert eye. She's a sturdy vessel, used to run the West African routes back in the 90s. Rose placed a large bowl in the center of the table.
Steph! Vieni a mangiare! The food is getting cold.
You're brooding on the balcony again, son. You're brooding on the balcony again, son.
He said, pulling out a chair. It looked like one of the old Mediterranean Shipping Company liners. Ah, the Venezia Grand, most likely. Nelson nodded with an expert eye. She's a sturdy vessel, used to run the West African routes back in the 90s. Rose placed a large bowl in the center of the table. The aroma that billowed forth was a glorious sensory contradiction. It was jollof rice, rich with tomatoes, Scotch bonnets, and bay leaves, but prepared with fresh seafood bought that morning from the fish market at the Ponte Rosso Canal in downtown Trieste. Eat, Rose said, nudging the bowl toward her son. She adjusted the colorful gill wrapped elegantly around her head, a stark contrast to the classic, understated Italian linen dress she wore. You need your strength. Tomorrow, we start packing for the summer trip. Every single year, without exception, the Kent family undertook a pilgrimage. while Stephanie's schoolmates at the Liceo Cientifico spent their summers sunbathing on the rocky beaches of Grado or hiking the Dolomites, Stephanie crossed oceans. The itinerary was always the same. 2 weeks in Baltimore to visit Nelson's siblings and Rose's American relatives, followed by a full month in Enugu and the family's ancestral village. "Are we stopping by Washington first this time, Mom?" Stephanie asked, spooning the fragrant rice onto his plate. "Yes, your Auntie Chinwe wants to see how tall you've grown." Rose smiled, her eyes crinkling. "She still swears you have the exact same nose as your grandfather Okiki. And your Uncle Marcus wants to take your father to some baseball game." Nelson groaned playfully. "Marcus knows I'm a cricket and soccer man now, Rose. I've lived in Europe too long. Baseball feels like watching grass grow. You will go, and you will enjoy it, Nelson." Rose countered with a laugh. "And then we go home." When Rose said home, she didn't mean the seaside mansion in Trieste, nor did she mean the brick row houses of Maryland. She meant the red dust roads, the canopy of palm trees, and the warm, thick air.
Steph, vieni a mangiare!
The food is getting cold. You're brooding on the balcony again, son.
The Adriatic Sea does not roar like the Atlantic. Instead, the water in the Gulf of Trieste with a persistent, rhythmic chatter, a language of trade, wind, and memory.
Or hiking the Dolomites, Stephanie crossed oceans. The itinerary was always the same. 2 weeks in Baltimore to visit Nelson's siblings and Rose's American relatives, followed by a full month in Enugu and the family's ancestral village. "Are we stopping by Washington first this time, Mom?" Stephanie asked, spooning the fragrant rice onto his plate. "Yes, your Auntie Chinwe wants to see how tall you've grown." Rose smiled, her eyes crinkling. "She still swears you have the exact same nose as your grandfather Okiki. And your Uncle Marcus wants to take your father to some baseball game." Nelson groaned playfully. "Marcus knows I'm a cricket and soccer man now, Rose. I've lived in Europe too long. Baseball feels like watching grass grow. You will go, and you will enjoy it, Nelson." Rose countered with a laugh. "And then we go home." When Rose said home, she didn't mean the seaside mansion in Trieste, nor did she mean the brick row houses of Maryland. She meant the red dust roads, the canopy of palm trees, and the warm, thick air of Nigeria. It was a preference that Stephanie had inherited completely, though he spoke fluent Italian with a perfect Triestino dialect, and though his English carried the smooth, easy rhythm of his American schooling, his heart tilted decisively toward his mother's homeland. Chapter 2. The Wind of the Adriatic. Living in Trieste meant living with the Bora, a fierce, katabatic wind that swept down from the Carso Plateau, howling through the streets and turning the sea into a churning cauldron of whitecaps. The locals took pride in it. They clung to the iron handrails installed along the sidewalks and claimed the wind cleaned the city's soul. To Stephanie, the Bora was a metaphor for his own identity. It was a force born from the meeting of different climates and altitudes, just as he was the product.
We go to Baltimore. Your Auntie Chinwe wants to see how tall you've grown. And your Uncle Marcus wants to take your father to some baseball game.
I first sailed into Trieste on a crisp October morning. The fierce Bora wind was whipping the sea into white foam. I fell in love instantly with its strange, melancholic beauty.
Nor did she mean the brick row houses of Maryland. She meant the red dust roads, the canopy of palm trees, and the warm, thick air of Nigeria. It was a preference that Stephanie had inherited completely, though he spoke fluent Italian with a perfect Triestino dialect, and though his English carried the smooth, easy rhythm of his American schooling, his heart tilted decisively toward his mother's homeland. Chapter 2. The Wind of the Adriatic. Living in Trieste meant living with the Bora, a fierce, katabatic wind that swept down from the Carso Plateau, howling through the street and turning the sea into a churning cauldron of whitecaps. The locals took pride in it. They clung to the iron handrails installed along the sidewalks and claimed the wind cleaned the city's soul. To Stephanie, the Bora was a metaphor for his own identity. It was a force born from the meeting of different climates and altitudes, just as he, the product of converging histories. The next morning, before the summer heat could heavy the air, Stephanie took his bicycle down the winding coastal road toward the city center. The wind was low today, just a gentle breeze off the water, carrying the scent of salt and roasted coffee beans. Trieste was, after all, the coffee capital of Italy, its historic cafe filled with the ghosts of writers like James Joyce and Italo Svevo. He parked his bike outside Café San Marco, a historic establishment with dark wood paneling and green-shaded lamps. Inside, he met his closest friend, Matteo, a boy whose family had lived in the San Giusto district for generations. "Ciao, Steph," Matteo said, looking up from a sports newspaper. "Allora, are you ready for the Great Migration?" "Prontissimo," Stephanie replied, sitting down and ordering an un capo in B, the unique Triestino term for a macchiato in a small glass. "The suitcases are already blocking the hallway. My mother packs as if we are opening a supermarket in Enugu." Matteo laughed. "I still don't understand how you do it every year. The jet lag alone would kill me. First to the U.S., then..."
I first sailed into Trieste on a crisp October morning. The fierce Bora wind was whipping the sea into white foam. I fell in love instantly with its strange, melancholic beauty.
They clung to the iron handrails installed along sidewalks and claimed the wind cleaned the city's soul. To Stephanie, the Bora was a metaphor for his own identity. It was a force born from the meeting of different climates and altitudes, just as he was the product of converging histories. The next morning, before the summer heat could heavy the air, Stephanie took his bicycle down the winding coastal road toward the city center. The wind was low today, just a gentle breeze off the water, carrying the scent of salt and roasted coffee beans. Trieste was, after all, the coffee capital of Italy, its historic cafe filled with the ghosts of writers like James Joyce and Italo Svevo. He parked his bike outside the Café San Marco, a historic establishment with dark wood paneling and green-shaded lamps. Inside, he met his closest friend, Matteo, a boy whose family lived in the San Giusto district for generations. "Ciao, Steph," Matteo said, looking up from a sports newspaper. "Allora, are you ready for the Great Migration?" "Prontissimo," Stephanie replied, sitting down and ordering an un capo in B, the unique Triestino term for a macchiato in a small glass. "The suitcases are already blocking the hallway. My mother packs as if we are opening a supermarket in Enugu." Matteo laughed. "I still don't understand how you do it every year. The jet lag alone would kill me. First to the U.S., then Africa, then back here. Don't you ever feel like you're caught between worlds?" Stephanie stirred his coffee, watching the brown liquid swirl into the white foam. "Sometimes, but it's not like being pulled apart. It feels more like having extra lives. When I am in Baltimore, I am the Italian cousin who loves basketball. When I am in Nigeria, I am the American boy who speaks Igbo with a strange accent but loves the food. And when I am here, I am just Stephanie. You're lucky, Matteo said quietly, looking out the window at the elegant Austro-Hungarian buildings. My family has looked at the same piazza for 200 years.
Mama, I am finally here!
My child, come home. Yes! Yes! Great goal!
Steph, vieni a mangiare. The food is getting cold.
The Venezia Grand.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Total Entertainment Channel.
We love you. We love you.
A distinguished older black American man and his mother, and they made assumptions. Some assumed they were recent refugees. Others, seeing their clothes and the way they carried themselves, realized they were wealthy foreigners. But Stephanie had never allowed the gaze of others to define him. His father had taught him early on that a captain does not let the waves dictate the destination. He uses the rudder. My dad says that Trieste is a city of border crossers, Stephanie said to Matteo. He chose this place because nobody here is just one thing. Half the people have Slovenian surnames, the architecture is Austrian, the food is Central European, but the language is Italian. I fit in here precisely because I don't fit into a single box. Fair point. Matteo smiled, raising his espresso glass. To the citizen of nowhere and everywhere. Don't forget to bring me back some of that authentic American hot sauce. The stuff they sell here tastes like tomato juice. I'll get the kind that burns your tongue off, Stephanie promised. Chapter 3. The Mid-Atlantic Way Station. 3 days later, the Adriatic coast was a distant memory. The transatlantic flight landed at Dulles International Airport in a haze of humid summer heat. The American air felt different, wider, louder, heavy with the smell of aviation fuel, asphalt, and suburban lawns. They stayed at Aunt Chinwee's house in Silver Spring, Maryland. Chinwee was Rose's older sister, a pediatrician who had lived in the United States so long. Her accent was a perfect blend of Maryland vowels and Igbo rhythms. Her house was a chaotic, beautiful sanctuary of the diaspora. The living room featured plush velvet sofas, a massive television displaying American cable news, and shelves lined with family portraits taken at various Nigerian traditional weddings across North America. For Stephanie,
Look at this boy! It started to take the drinks.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Total Entertainment Channel.
We love you. We love you.
look at this boy, Uncle Marcus roared, slamming the screen door behind him as he entered the backyard where the family had gathered for a barbecue. Marcus was Rose's brother-in-law, a proud Baltimore native. Nelson, what are you feeding him over there in Italy? Prosciutto?
Look at this boy!
He's bigger than the last time
Look
I
at this
saw him.
300.
It's the Mediterranean diet, Marcus, said, laughing as he shook his brother-in-law's hand, and plenty rowing on the Adriatic. Stephanie stepped forward, embracing his uncle. Good to see you, Uncle Marcus. Man, your accent gets more interesting every year, Marcus said, shaking his head in amazement. You got that smooth American bass line, but there's a little Italian spin on the vowels. You sound like an international diplomat. During the 2 weeks in Maryland, Stephanie immersed himself in the American experience. He went to a Baltimore Orioles baseball game with his father and Marcus, sitting in the humid stands, eating hot dogs, and trying to understand the intricate statistics that his uncle rattled off with religious devotion. He visited the National Museum of African American History and Culture, in Washington, D.C., standing silently before exhibits that detailed a painful, triumphant history that was part of his broader identity, even if his specific lineage had bypassed the American plantation system. Yet, even while walking through the air-conditioned malls of Bethesda or watching the fireworks on the 4th of July, Stephanie found his gaze drifting to his mother and aunt. They would sit in the kitchen for hours, chopping onions and pounding yams, speaking a rapid-fire mixture of English and Igbo. They were planning the second leg of the journey with meticulous detail. Boxes of vitamins, designer clothing, and electronics were stacked in the hallway, destined for aunts, uncles, and cousins.
Look at my brother! Nelson, you look younger every time you come back. It must.
Steph, you have to come with us to the football turf tomorrow. Some boys from the next street challenged us. We need your height in defense.
Boxes of vitamins, designer clothing, and electronics were stacked in the hallway, destined for aunts, uncles, and cousins in Enugu. Are you looking forward to going to the village, Steph? His cousin Maya asked him one evening. Maya was 16, born and raised in Silver Spring, and her relationship with Nigeria was more detached than his. To her, it was a distant vacation spot. To Stephanie, it was an orientation point. I can't wait, Stephanie said truthfully. I want to see the Red Hills again. In Trinidad, everything is stone and old limestone. In Enugu, the earth looks like it's alive. Maya looked at him curiously. You're weird, Steph. Most guys from Europe want to spend their summers in Miami or New York. You just want to go sit in the village with the elders. It's not just sitting, Stephanie smiled. It's remembering. Chapter 4. The Red Earth of Enugu. The transition from the clinical efficiency of American airports to the sensory explosion of Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos. Then, the domestic connection to Enugu. The jolt that always woke Stephanie's soul. The moment the aircraft door opened in Enugu, the heat hit him. Not the dry, searing heat of an Italian summer, or the heavy humidity of Maryland, but a thick, fragrant equatorial warmth that smelled of wood smoke, wet soil, and open-air markets. It was a scent that Stephanie recognized instantly in the deepest recesses of his biology. New, welcome. The arrivals terminal was a sea of moving bodies, vibrant colors, and shouting voices. Waiting for them was Uncle Chidi, Rose's younger brother who managed the family's properties in Nigeria. He was accompanied by two of Stephanie's cousins, Obinna and Kioma, who immediately rushed forward to embrace them. Look at my brother, Chidi cried.
A child of the diaspora, anchored in the red earth of Nigeria, the bustling grit of Baltimore.
Sometimes, but it is not like being pulled apart. And when I am here, I am just Stephanie. Sometimes I think the walls here remember too much. My dad says that.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Total Entertainment Channel. We love you.
Deepest recesses of his biology. New, welcome. The arrivals terminal was a sea of moving bodies, vibrant colors, and shouting voices. Waiting for them was Uncle Chidi, Rose's young brother who managed the family's properties in Nigeria. He was accompanied by two of Stephanie's cousins, Obinna and Kioma, who immediately rushed forward to embrace him. Look at my brother, Chidi cried, hugging Nelson warmly. The two men, despite their completely different backgrounds, a Black American sea captain and an Igbo businessman, had formed a bond over 25 years of family summers. Nelson, you look younger every time you come back. It must be that Italian sea air. It's the lack of traffic, GD. Nelson laughed, clapping him on the back. Though I see Enugu traffic hasn't improved. They piled into a large SUV, their mountain of suitcases secured on the roof rack. As they drove through the streets of Enugu, Stephanie leaned his head against the window, watching the city unfold. Enugu, the old coal city, was nestled among rolling green hills. The red earth contrasted sharply with lush tropical vegetation. Roadside vendors sold roasted corn and groundnut. Yellow tricycles, Kika and Pep, weaved through traffic like schools of frantic fish, and billboards featuring smiling politicians and charismatic preachers lined the highways. To someone else, it might have seemed chaotic. To Stephanie, it was a symphony. They spent the first week at family city residence in the Independence layout neighborhood of Nugu, a beautiful multi-story house surrounded by a high wall topped with bougainvillea. Here, the rhythm of life shifted. Morning began with the alarm clock or the distant chime of a
Don't worry about that. Just stand. Look big like your father shits.
This was the ancestral village. Look at this boy! Look at this 300!
To Stephanie, it was a symphony. They spent the first week in the family's city residence in the Independence layout neighborhood of Enugu, a beautiful multi-story house surrounded by a high wall topped with bougainvillea. Here, the rhythm of life shifted. Morning began not with the alarm clock or the distant chime of a Triestino church bell, but with the sweeping of the compound yards and the distant crowing of roosters. Every afternoon, relatives poured into the house. Stephanie sat among his cousins, absorbing their slang, their laughter, their ways of moving through the world. Steph, you have to come with us to the football turf tomorrow, Opina said one evening as they sat on the veranda, drinking a cold bottle of maltini. Some boys from the next street challenged us. We need your height in defense. I don't know. Obi, Stephanie laughed. I play basketball in Italy. My footwork on a football pitch is a bit rusty. Don't worry about that. Kioma chimed in, smiling. Just stand there and look big like your father's ships. They will be too scared to pass you. The next day, under the hot afternoon sun on a dusty pitch where the grass grew in stubborn patches,
from the next street
Stephanie played.
We need your
He ran until his lungs burned, his boots kicking up the red dust that stained his skin and his jersey. When he scored a header off a corner kick, cousins warmed him, shouting his name, pulling him to a celebratory dance that he didn't quite know, but executed with joyful abandon. In that moment, covered in Nigerian dust, laughing with his kin, the elegant avenues of Trieste and the shopping malls of Maryland felt like they belonged to a completely different reincarnation of his life. Here, he was not a minority. He was not a novelty. He was simply part of the fabric. Chapter 5. The Ancestral Village. The true heart of the journey, however, lay an hour outside the city, in the ancestral village of the Amadi Oke family near Algu.
Dinner is served. Squid ink pasta with a touch of Enugu pepper.
The two worlds are not divisible but perfectly whole.
The road to the village was a journey through time. The paved highways gave way to eroded dirt tracks that wound through dense forests of oil palms, yam farms, and ancient trees whose roots gripped the earth like giant hands. as the SUV pulled into the large family compound in the village. The sound of the engine brought people running. This was the home of Stephanie's maternal grandmother, Mama Neka, a matriarch who had refused to move permanently to America or Enugu, preferring the peace of the ancestral land. When Rose stepped out of the vehicle, she didn't walk. She ran into her mother's arms. The two women held each other, weeping tears of joy, speaking in a low, rapid Igbo that sounded like poetry. Then Mama Neka turned her eyes to Stephanie. She was a small woman, her skin beautifully wrinkled like fine leather, wrapped in a classic matching up and down wrapper. Despite age, her eyes were sharp and clear. On Yenyarem, she whispered, using Stephanie's Igbo name, which meant God's gift. She reached up, her old hands touching his cheeks, feeling the structure of his face. She looked into his eyes and smiled a deep, knowing smile. You have returned from the sea, she said in Igbo, a language Stephanie understood perfectly, even if his tongue sometimes stumbled over the tonal pronunciations. You look more like your ancestors every day, my child. Nelson stepped forward, bowing respectfully to his mother-in-law. Good afternoon, Mama. Nelson, my son, Mama Nick said, embracing him. Thank you for bringing my children home again. The weeks in the village were defined by profound simplicity. There was no internet, and electricity was sporadic, relying on the evening rumble of the generator. But for Stephanie, it was a liberation. He spent his mornings walking with his grandfather's mother, Papa Oke, through the family's farms. Papa Oke carried a machete with easy grace, clearing paths through the brush, pointing out the different varieties of yams, cassava, and cocoyams. He taught Stephanie how to read the sky, how to know when the afternoon rain was coming, by the smell of the wind and the behavior of birds. Your mother loves this land.
Soil knows your name.
People survived. You carry them. Onyerem, you are not a stranger here.
This soil knows your name.
How to know when the afternoon rain was coming, by the smell of the wind and the behavior of birds. Your mother loves this land, Papa Oke said one morning as they rested under the shade of a massive Iroko tree. When she was a little girl visiting from America, she would cry when it was time to leave. She told me she wanted to marry a man who would always bring her back. And she found your father. My dad loves it here too, Stephanie said, sitting on a fallen log. He says the peace he finds here is the same peace he used to feel when he was in the middle of the ocean, thousands of miles from land. A sailor knows the value of a safe harbor. Papa Oki nodded wisely. And this village is a harbor for your blood. No matter where your father's ships take you, or where your own life leads you, remember that this soil knows your name. When you walk on it, you are not a stranger. In the evenings, the extended family gathered in the central courtyard under a canopy of stars that shone with brilliant, untamed clarity impossible to see in Europe. They ate bowls of ofe onugbu, bitter leaf soup, with pounded yam, cooked over a wood fire by Rose and the other women. Nelson would sit with the elders, sharing a bottle of aromatic schnapps or palm wine, discussing global politics, shipping routes, and village developments. Though Nelson was an American from Baltimore living in Italy, the village elders respected him as a titled man of their community, a husband who had honored their daughter and their traditions. Stephanie would sit near his grandmother, listening to the old folk stories. Tales of Tortoise and his cunning tricks, stories of ancient warriors, and histories of how their people had survived wars, migrations, and changing times. As he listened, he realized that his identity was not a fraction. He was not 1/3 Italian, 1/3 American, and 1/3 Nigerian. He was entirely each one. His identity was multiplicative, not divisive. Chapter 6. The Synthesis of Three Worlds. By the end of August, the air in the village began to change.
I come to you as a father who wants the best for Stephanie. We hear you, Captain, but tradition must guide our steps. Welcome back, my son. It is good to be home.
Steph, you have to come with us to the football tour tomorrow. Some boys from the next street challenged us. We need your heights in defense.
Stories of ancient warriors and histories of how their people had survived wars, migrations, and changing times. As he listened, he realized that his identity was not a fraction. He was not 1/3 Italian, 1/3 American, and 1/3 Nigerian. He was entirely each one. His identity was multiplicative, not divisive. Chapter 6. The Synthesis of Three Worlds. By the end of August, the air of the village began to change, hinting at the coming shift in seasons. The suitcases were repacked, lighter now that the gifts had been distributed, but heavy with spices, dried fish, pieces of traditional fabric, and a jar of the red village earth that Rose always kept in her kitchen in Trieste. The journey back was a reverse film of their arrival. Enugu to Lagos, Lagos to Frankfurt, and finally the regional flight back to Venice, followed by the familiar drive along the coastal road back to Trieste. When they entered their mansion on the Costiera, the house was cool and quiet. The Adriatic Sea outside the windows was a calm, turquoise mirror, glowing under the late afternoon sun. Stephanie went up to his bedroom. He dropped his backpack on his desk and looked around. On his shelves sat his Italian school textbooks, a basketball signed by his team in Trieste, a baseball cap from the Baltimore Orioles, and a small hand-carved wooden statue of an eagle that Papa OK had given him before they left the village. He walked over to the large window and opened it. The sea breeze entered, fresh and crisp, carrying the subtle hint of the approaching autumn. He heard his father's footsteps on the stairs. Nelson entered the room, leaning against the doorframe looking at his son. "Good to be back?" Nelson asked quietly. "Yeah," Stephanie said, turning around. "It's good to be back, but I already miss the village." Nelson smiled, stepping into the room and placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "A good captain always misses the ports he leaves behind, Steph. But that's the beauty."
Steph, vieni a mangiare!
The food is getting cold. You're brooding on the balcony again, son.
It was a synthesis of three worlds: Italian books, a basketball, and the eagle statue. The two worlds are not divisible. They are perfectly whole.
These are the exact same colors from Enugu.
A good captain always misses the ports he leaves behind, Steph. But that's the beauty of the life we've built. You don't have to leave Nigeria behind just because you're looking at the Adriatic. You carry it in your posture, in the way you treat people, in the music you listen to. "Do you ever regret it, Dad?" Stephanie asked. "Leaving America? Settling here instead of Enugu or Baltimore?" "Not for a second," Nelson said firmly, looking out at the sea. "When I sailed into Trieste 40 years ago, I saw a city that had survived by embracing everyone who passed through it. Romans, Austrians, Slavs, Greeks. They all left a piece of themselves here. I knew that if I had children, this would be a place where they could grow up without being forced to choose a single label. Look at you. You speak 3 languages, you understand 3 continents, and you have homes across the globe. That's not a burden, son. That's a superpower. Stephanie looked down at his hands, still slightly dry from the red dust of Aogu, and then out at the Italian Sea. He understood now. He didn't have to choose. He didn't have to minimize his Nigerian soul to fit into the classrooms of his Italian school, nor did he have to hide his European upbringing when walking through the markets of Enugu or the streets of Baltimore. He was Stephanie Kent, born of the sea, shaped by the red earth, and free to sail wherever his horizon shifted. That evening, the Kent family sat down for dinner on their terrace overlooking the Gulf of Trieste. Rose had prepared a classic Italian pasta al nero di sepia, squid ink pasta, but she had seasoned the seafood with a pinch of crushed dry pepper she had brought back from Enugu. As they ate, the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky over Trieste in brilliant shades of orange, crimson, and deep purple. The exact same colors Stephanie had watched fade over the hills of Enugu just a week before. The world was vast, complicated, and fractured, but on this terrace, between the mountains and the sea, it was perfectly, beautifully whole.
2 years after you finish, we expect you to settle down. Rose, the boy just turned 18.
Let him breathe.
You look deep in thought, mio caro.
When I think about the future, I don't see blank space. I see you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Total Entertainment Channel.
We love you. We love you.
The weight of expectations. The summer after Stephanie turned 18, the Adriatic air felt a little heavier, laden with the invisible anchors of adulthood. The white stone mansion along the Costiera remained as breathtaking as ever,
A man needs
perched between the limestone cliffs of the Carso and the shimmering turquoise expanse of the Gulf of Trieste. But inside, the conversations at the dinner table were shifting from the carefree rhythms of youth to the structured blueprints of the future. Stephanie had just completed his first year at the University of Trieste, studying international economics. He was thriving, navigating the rigorous Italian academic system with the same fluid ease used to navigate different cultures. Yet, to his mother, Rose Mads Kent, university was not merely an intellectual pursuit. It was the final, formal prelude to real life. 2 years, Steph,
2 years after you
Rose
finish,
said one
we
evening,
expect you to
her
settle.
voice firm with the unquestionable authority of a traditional Igbo mother. She was standing at the kitchen island, meticulously wrapping pieces of seasoned stockfish for the evening meal, her gel tilted back slightly from her forehead. 2 years after you finish your degree, we expect you to settle down. A man needs an anchor before the world tries to drift him away. Nelson Kent looked up from his newspaper at the end of the table, a knowing, amused smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Rose, the boy just turned 18. Let him breathe. He's got exams to worry about before he starts shopping for wedding rings. Nelson, keep quiet, Rose replied playfully, but with a sharp look that brooked no argument. In our culture, you don't wait until you are old and gray to build a family. You start early, you build together. Stephanie is a handsome, responsible boy. He has the blood of Enugu, Baltimore, and Trieste in him.
Why didn't it bother you? Because when I think about the future, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't matter. As long as you're the destination, the timeline doesn't scare me.
Look at him, already thinking about the ring.
Nelson, keep quiet. In our culture, you build together. You start early, you build together.
The annual family pilgrimage to Nigeria began. At 18, Stephanie was now an eligible bachelor.
Baltimore and Trieste in him. He must plan ahead. Stephanie sat quietly, swirling the remaining water in his glass, to any other 18-year-old raised in Western Europe. Such an explicit mandate from a parent might have sparked a fiery debate about personal freedom and modern timelines. But Stephanie understood his mother. He knew her words weren't a trap. They were a manifestation of deep love and cultural continuity. More importantly, the idea of marriage didn't scare him at all. In fact, it didn't even bother him. Because for the past year,
years after you finish
Stephanie's
it,
heart had
we
been
expect
firmly
you to settle
occupied.
A
The
man needs an
Triestina
anchor
and the sea.
before the world tries
Her
to
name
drift him away.
was Irena. She was 17, a true Triestina born and raised in the historic San Vito district, with eyes the color of the Adriatic after a storm and a laugh that could cut through the thickest winter bora. They had met at a University Cultural Association event, and what began as a casual coffee at the Piazza Unità d'Italia had rapidly evolved into a deep, consuming love. Irena understood the unique fabric of Trieste, the way the city clung to its Austro-Hungarian past while fiercely defending its Italian identity. But Stephanie, she found a window to a world far wider than the local horizons. She loved listening to him speak English with his smooth, slightly rhythmic cadence, and she hung on to every story he told about the red dust roads of Enugu or the sprawling suburbs of Maryland. The afternoon following his mother's marriage lecture, Stephanie met Irena at the Barcola, the long, pine-shaded coastal promenade where locals gathered to sunbathe and swim. The summer sun was blindingly bright, casting a silver sheet over the water. "You look deep in thought, mio caro," Irena said, leaning her head against his shoulder as they sat on the stone barrier, their legs dangling over the lapping waves. She smelled of sea salt and citrus sunscreen. Stephanie laughed, wrapping an arm around her.
It's an African mother thing. For them,
Milestones are meant to be met.
why didn't it bother you? Because when I think about the future, I see you.
2 years after you finish your degree, we expect you to settle down. A man needs an anchor before the world tries to drift him away.
My mother is planning my wedding. 2 years to find a wife.
2 years? Is she serious?
It's an African mother thing.
Why didn't it bother you?
Because when I look at the future, I see a bachelor.
Citrus sunscreen. Stephanie laughed, wrapping an arm around her. "My mother is already planning my wedding, Irena. She gave me my official timeline yesterday. University graduation, then exactly 2 years to find a wife." Irena stiffened slightly in surprise, looking up at him with wide eyes. 2 years? Stephanie, we are so young. Is she serious? Completely serious.
Why didn't it bother you?
Stephanie smiled,
Because
kissing
I
the
think
top
about
of her
the
head.
future. 2 years,
It's
5
an
years,
African
10
mother
years, it doesn't
thing.
matter.
For them,
As long as you're the destination,
milestones are meant to be
timeline
met,
doesn't
not negotiated. But don't worry, it didn't bother me. "Why didn't it bother you?" she asked softly, her fingers tracing the fabric of his shirt. "Because when I think about the future, I don't see a blank space,"
Rose,
Stephanie said, looking directly into her eyes. "I see you. 2 years, 5 years,
You look deep
10
in thought,
years.
mio caro.
It doesn't matter. As long as you're the destination, timeline doesn't scare me." A radiant smile broke across Irena's face, and she pulled him down into a deep, reassuring kiss. In the sheltered microclimate of Trieste, wrapped in each other's arms, the future felt entirely manageable. They were young, passionately in love, and certain that the boundaries of their current lives were enough to hold them forever. But Stephanie's life was never destined to exist within a single boundary. The ghost of Enugu. 3 weeks later, the annual family pilgrimage began. The transition from the cool, organized shores of northern Italy to the vibrant, chaotic, and deeply emotional landscape of Nigeria was always a sensory shock. But this year, it felt different. As an 18-year-old man, Stephanie was no longer viewed as just a child traveling with his parents. He was an eligible bachelor, a son of the diaspora returning home. When they arrived at the family's urban residence in Enugu's Independence layout, the compound was already buzzing with activity, and standing near the veranda, helping Auntie Chinwe arrange trays of fresh garden eggs and peanut butter,
You look different this year, Steph. Grown up.
University changes you, I guess.
Your mother wants you married shortly after you graduate.
Yeah, she likes to plan ahead.
And what about you, Stephanie?
Man, you're breaking hearts all over Maryland this week. You need to just move to the States, Steph. It was a synthesis of three worlds: Italian books, a basketball, and the eagle statue. The two worlds are not visible. They are perfectly whole.
within a single boundary. The ghost of Enugu. 3 weeks later, the annual family pilgrimage began. The transition from the cool, organized shores of northern Italy to the vibrant, chaotic, and deeply emotional landscape of Nigeria was always a sensory shock. But this year, it felt different. As an 18-year-old man, Stephanie was no longer viewed as just a child traveling with his parents. He was an eligible bachelor, a son of the diaspora returning home. When they arrived at the family's urban residence in Enugu's Independence layout, compound was already buzzing with activity, and standing near the veranda, helping Auntie Chinwe arrange trays of fresh garden eggs and peanut butter, was Amaka. Amaka
Welcome
was
back,
19,
Thank you,
a
Makai.
brilliant university student from a neighboring family in the village who was currently staying in Enugu for an internship. She was strikingly beautiful, with flawless dark skin, high cheekbones, and an expressive, confident gaze that seemed to see right through Stephanie's international veneer. Amaka had loved Stephanie for as long as she could remember. Every summer, when the American-Italian boy arrived, her world centered around his brief presence. "Welcome back, Stephanie," Amaka said as he walked up the veranda steps, carrying his father's heavy leather travel bag. Her voice carried the musical, elevated tone of a cultured Nigerian woman. "Thank you, Amaka. It's really good to see you," Stephanie replied, offering a warm smile. Over the next 2 weeks, Amaka was a constant presence. She knew exactly how Stephanie liked his food seasoned, less spicy than the local palate, but with enough depth to remind him of his roots. She sat next to him during long family dinners, engaging him in sharp, intellectual debates about global economics, Nigerian politics, and literature. When they walked through the Polo Club grounds in the evenings, her laughter felt like a melody that belonged uniquely to the Enugu Hills. One evening, as a sudden tropical downpour trapped them on
Welcome back, Stephanie.
Thank you, Amaka. It's really good to see you.
He was in love with Irina. That love was real and grounding. But he carried the poetry of Amaka and the potential of girls across the Atlantic. This brought a strange, mature clarity. He embraced.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Total Entertainment Channel. We love you.
actual debates about global economics, Nigerian politics, and literature. When they walked through the Polo Club grounds in the evenings, her laughter felt like a melody that belonged uniquely to the Enugu Hills. One evening, as a sudden tropical downpour trapped them on the covered balcony of the house, the space between them grew small. The rain drummed furiously against the zinc roof, creating a wall of sound that isolated them from the rest of the household. "You look different this year, Steph," Amaka said quietly, leaning against the balcony rail, watching the water pool in the courtyard below. "More grown up, more serious. University changes you, I guess," Stephanie said, matching her posture. "You start realizing the world expects things from you." Amaka turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face. "Your mother told my auntie that she wants you married shortly after you graduate." Stephanie shifted uncomfortably, the thought of Irina flashing through his mind like a beacon. "Yeah, she likes to plan ahead." about you, Stephanie. Amaka stepped closer, her voice dropping to a soft, vulnerable whisper. Do you plan ahead? Or do you only think about Nigeria when you are standing on this soil? Every year you come for 2 weeks, maybe a month. We laugh, we talk, we share everything, and then you board a plane and disappear back into the sky. It's hard, Steph. A few weeks isn't enough to properly love someone. It feels like a beautiful dream that I have to wake up from every September. Stephanie felt a profound ache in his chest. He cared for Amaka deeply. Her intelligence, her cultural pride, and her devotion to him were undeniable. But the reality of his fractured geography was an inescapable wall. Amaka, you know my life is split across oceans. I can't change the distance. I know, she said, a solitary tear tracking down her cheek, though she smiled bravely. But remember this, the Red Earth doesn't forget you when you leave, and neither do I.
Welcome back, man!
We missed you so much!
Thanks, guys.
Steph!
You're finally back.
I missed you so much.
I missed you too, Arina.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Total Entertainment Channel. We love you.
The allure of the West. If Nigeria was the emotional anchor that tested his stability, the United States was the vibrant, high-energy catalyst that disrupted his peace. Following their stay in Enugu, the Kent family traveled to Baltimore, Maryland, to spend the final leg of the summer with Captain Nelson's side of the family. In America, Stephanie was a revelation. He was no longer just the tall, athletic boy from the diaspora.
We missed
He
you
was a
so
devastatingly
much.
handsome, multilingual young man with an exotic Italian accent, an American passport, and a deep African heritage. He possessed a unique, magnetic charm that made him an immediate center of attention wherever he went. During the suburban backyard barbecues, community block parties, and trips to the inner harbor, Stephanie found himself constantly pursued. There was Chloe, a vibrant college track athlete with an infectious smile, who lived down the street from his Uncle Marcus. She spent hours teaching Stephanie the latest American dance moves, her laughter echoing across the lawn. There was Maya's friend Tasha, an aspiring fashion designer who was fascinated by his sense of style and his descriptions of Milan and Trieste, constantly finding excuses to text him or sit next to him during family outings. For a young man of 18, the attention was both exhilarating and dizzying. Looking forward to visiting his father's homeland became associated with a profound sense of validation and excitement. In America, the social boundaries were fluid, the energy was electric, and the girls caught his attention with a confident, forward charm that was entirely different from the reserved nature.
We missed you so much!
Man, you're breaking hearts all over Maryland this week. You need to just move to the States, Steph. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Total Entertainment Channel.
We love you. We love you.
The energy was electric, and the girls caught his attention with a confident, forward charm that was entirely different from the reserved nature of the Triestini or the deep, traditional expectations of the Nigerian girls.
You need to just move to the States.
Man, you're breaking hearts all over Maryland this week. His cousin Marcus Jr. laughed one night as they played video games in the basement. Chloe asked me 3 times today if you were coming to the movie theater tonight. You need to just move to the States, Steph. You'd have a line around the block. Stephanie laughed, shaking his head. But as he looked at his phone, which contained a text from Chloe asking about his evening plans, a long emotional email from Amaka in Enugu, and a sweet, simple WhatsApp message from Irina wishing him a good night from Trieste. A profound sense of vertigo washed over him. The confluence. By the time the plane touched down back in Venice, and the family took the familiar taxi ride along the panoramic coastal road back into Trieste, Stephanie felt as though his soul had been stretched across 3 continents. The next day, he walked up to the San Giusto Castle, overlooking the entire city of Trieste. The evening light was turning the old stone walls a warm pink, and the sea below was vast and silent. Irina was waiting for him, sitting on a stone bench, her face lighting up the moment she saw him. "Steph!" she cried, throwing her arms around his neck. She held him tightly, as if checking to ensure he was entirely real and hadn't been swallowed by the vast Atlantic. "You're finally back. I missed you so much." "I missed you too, Irina," Stephanie said, holding her close, inhaling the familiar comforting scent of her hair. As they walked hand in hand.
I'm finally back! I missed you guys so much! I missed you guys so much! Welcome home, Steph! Cheers!
Why didn't it bother you? Because when I think about the future, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't matter. As long as you're the destination, the timeline doesn't scare me.
Look at him, already thinking about the ring.
Nelson, keep quiet. In our culture, you build together. You start early, you build together.
Welcome back, Stephanie.
Thank you, Amaka. It's really good to see you.
Evening light was turning the old stone walls a warm pink, and the sea below was vast and silent. Irina was waiting for him, sitting on a stone bench, her face lighting up the moment she saw him. "Steph!" she cried, throwing her arms around his neck. She held him tightly, as if checking to ensure he was entirely real and hadn't been swallowed by the vast Atlantic. "You're finally back. I missed you so much." "I missed you too, Irina," Stephanie said, holding her close, inhaling the familiar comforting scent of her hair. As they walked hand in hand through the historic streets, Irina chattered happily about her upcoming final year of high school, her friends, and the local news. Stephanie listened, feeling a deep sense of peace return to his bones. This was his daily reality, the structured, beautiful, manageable life he had chosen. Yet, as he looked out at the horizon where the sea met the sky, he knew that he could no longer pretend to be simple. He was a son of 3 worlds. His mother's expectation of marriage in 2 years was no longer a distant abstract. It was an approaching horizon. He was in love with Irina, and that love was real and grounding. But he also carried the unfinished poetry of Amaka in Enugu, and the bright, intoxicating potential of the girls who awaited him every time he crossed the Atlantic to his father's home. Instead of tearing him apart, however, the realization brought a strange, mature clarity to his 18-year-old mind. He understood that his life would never be a straight, conventional line. He embraced the complexity. He would love fiercely, respect his heritage deeply, and navigate the shifting winds of his global identity, not as a victim of geography, but as a captain of his own destiny.
Redpanda is an alternative solution for Apache Kafka. You can take your Kafka client, both producers and consumers, or your Kafka Streams application.